uh, we're so delighted to begin our conversation during these Paryushan Parvs with something spiritual that will last and help us change our way of thinking. So with me is Yogan Bhai, and we will begin with the conversation and begin with the Namokar mantra.
So if folks can take a moment and just sort of sit straight a little bit, close your eyes, take a nice deep breath, inhale, hold, and exhale.
Why?
You're not turning.
And let's do Namokar mantra, one Namokar mantra together.
But why?
Om Namo Arihantanam. Om Namo Siddhanam. Om Namo Ariyanam. Om Namo Vachayanam. Om Namo Loe Savanam. Eso Panch Namokaro. Sava Pava Pranashno. Mangla Savesem. Paramam Hoi Mangla. Om Shanti Shanti.
Great. So welcome everyone and Jai Jain. So the question is, why are we here? So Yogan Bhai, what about why are we here? What is it that we want to talk about?
We all have a unique journey in our Jain way of life and our practice of Jainism. And what we like to share with you is how we can better apply that in the modern context today. And that is our goal today. And remember, our eventual goal is moksha that we say, but a more shorter term goal is happiness and equanimity. And we like to focus on that a little bit as to how we can share our journeys and discuss a stronger path to that.
Great. So can you see my screen? Yes. Can you see my screen? Okay, great. So before we do that, why don't we take a minute and talk about who we are and where we come from the Jain perspective, so the people who are here will get a bit of a background. So I'm an infectious disease doctor. I also work on TB in India, but a great deal of work on Jainism, writing books on Mahavir Bhagwan for children, as well as about nonviolence. And then with Tarla Dalal, we did a book on Jain food. I also write for the Washington Post and then some on meditation. But the real key that I enjoy doing is my work with the Long Range Planning Committee. It is a group of individuals, a part of Jaina, and they are sponsoring us in doing this workshop. Now, Yogan Bhai, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, great. So my background is in technology and artificial intelligence. We do a lot of work in that area, startups, but more interestingly, I also have been very active in the Jainism and Jain way of life discussions in North America. So I grew up here mostly, and you may see that book on the left there, which is Jain way of life. I, together with my wife, Preeti Jain, and others have had a chance to put that together. And we've done a lot of projects that have looked at how do we bring Jainism to the modern times. And I also have been chairman of Long Range Planning for Jaina. And we like to thank Jaina and Long Range Planning for encouraging us to do this.
Okay, so I'm going to jump right into it, okay? So the question
and sorry,
is...
I forgot to mention, I have been teaching Pathshala in the Boston area for quite some time. I should say that because our esteemed Pathshala director is also on the call. Preeti.
Okay, great. All right, so Yogan Bhai, let's talk about this very critical question which is at hand. Why do we need to be talking about Jain Dharma? अपन इसके बारे में क्यों बातें करना चाहते हैं, स्पेशली नॉर्थ अमेरिका में, जैसे अपने बच्चे बड़े हो रहे हैं यहाँ पे. Why? What is it that's happening that you feel, I feel, many of us feel are important to talk about Jain religion in a different way from what we're talking about? So again, this conversation is not just about Jain Dharma and the values that it's bringing. It's looking at Jain Dharma in a different way that we will talk about. But why talk about it in the first place?
So we did a survey of 1,600 Jains throughout North America. And it was actually quite an eye-opening survey. In fact, the results are on jwl.org website. But to summarize this, there is a huge homogenization that is taking place in the 150,000 Jains that we have in North America. Mixed marriages, almost half of them are mixed marriages. And as you can see, that is going to create huge amount of pressure on Jainism. And even, I'm afraid we may not be alive or that strong in the future.
So are you afraid that Jainism in North America could become extinct?
American Indian tradition has become extinct. So many other traditions have become extinct. I believe that there's a strong chance, unless we are, as a group, we're proactive. See, it's just not these other mixed marriages and so on. I think the world has changed, and the world has changed. So much pressure of work and career, all that has, and social media and Netflix, all that has created very little time for us to practice our spirituality. And Manoj, as you well know, there continues to be other pressures. Perhaps you can share what you feel are some of the other pressures.
Yeah, I think things are changing. Kids are looking at much different number of media. And the language that we use for religion, if we still keep talking with our next generation about tattvas and other things, I think they glaze over it. So I think there's a need. Plus, we live in a very difficult situation where happiness is very much confounded with so many other things. So why not discuss this in light of the scriptures? So the why, as I see it, is that there is tremendous amount of pressure from society, especially in America, that there is a question of what is happiness for us in America as well, and then that there are limited resources for us. So let us begin our conversation with this. So the question is, we understand the why. Let us now look at what are the ways that these have been addressed. Yogan Bhai, you've been working and have for the past 20 years put together, the team and all have put together the Jain way of life. What is the Jain way of life?
It's actually rather simple. We continue to make it very complicated. To do this, don't do this, do this. And we have so many rules and traditions and do's and don'ts that sometimes it's easier to just ignore it all. But Jainism is actually super simple. And it's really easy to add this and permeate this in our lives and be happy about it and be positive about it. And it is that discussion, it is that path that we want to take. And I know that doesn't sound very specific, but I do, as we go along, you will see how health and compassion and so on can be so much part of life without the tension of a lot of the do's and the don'ts.
Okay, so the Jain way of life, the practices of Jainism, but Jainism's got many values and jewels. Are you afraid that they might be lost? What are your thoughts on that, and which are the ones that you want to keep going?
So here's the deal. 2,000 years ago, 2,500 years ago to be precise, a lot of beautiful things came from Mahavira. In fact, today is the celebration of his birthday. And all of those are now validated by science today. You've seen all these: filtered water, mathematics, equality towards women, and we're so lucky to have had those. But we have not seen this getting shared outside of the Jain community. And can you imagine 2,000 years ago, 1,000 years ago, even 100 years ago, if before start of World War II, let's say, if some of these did permeate the larger world, the larger society. We could have averted
So-
war, we could have averted famine, we could have averted diseases. It would have been a
So-
different world.
So you're saying that if the Jain values, namely things such as nonviolence, anekantvad, were there, that would have made a major difference. I'm going to ask Preeti Ben. We were talking earlier. What are some Jain values that you think we need to advocate in North America and with our children as well? Preeti Ben, your thoughts. You're teaching Parshala to over 130 kids in the Boston area. Please share some of your thoughts on that. Are you able to unmute? She was there. 1 second. Or anyone else for that. Yeah, if others are there, if Preeti Ben, you can unmute. Yeah, go ahead.
So Manoj, go back to the previous slide. So I want to share with you why I have the opportunity to speak at high school, to high school kids about nonviolence. And I start out by, and about Jainism, and I say to them, thousands of years ago, Jains have been practicing nonviolence, anekantvad, non-absolutism, animal compassion, vegetarianism. These things have come to be in light only in the very recent last 10, 20, 50 years. And those are some of the treasures that we need to not only appreciate, but cherish and make sure that now we're not keeping it within us, but making sure that not only our kids, but the future generation and the world that we share are able to get from us.
So let me ask anyone else on the group to get a little bit of a conversation going here. Tell us from your perspective, what are some Jain values that you would like the world to know about and your children and your great grandchildren to keep? So thoughts from others in the group. So this is a good open discussion. Please go ahead.
Manoj bhai, this is Preeti.
Yes, please. Hi. Yeah. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, I was unable to unmute earlier, so now I could.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
So I feel ahimsa is the basic principle that we would like our children and next generation to follow, and ahimsa includes so many other things, right? Animal compassion, or vegetarianism. So it leads to many other things, and also our scriptures and everything has so much value in that. But I think for the current generation, we need to put according to their perspective. They are not going to go and remember all the scriptures without understanding anything. So that is my main, that we have so much valuable treasure with us, but we are unable to pass it on to our next generation.
So in fact, that is the very way to pass it on, that we will be talking about on how to develop that vocabulary. So as we are doing that, so Yogen Bhai, tell us a little bit about how, if someone asked you on a plane, what is Jainism? How do you describe it? How do you describe what is Jainism for them? What is your elevator speech for short?
Well, in the old days, I would say something like soul and something about karma. And in fact, today at our temple, we got about 15 college students who were, and most of them had come from India recently, had joined colleges in the Boston area. And we were introducing them to us. And I asked a simple question. Hey, if your newfound American colleagues ask you, and they were not able to give a very, or almost any answer to, hey, what is Jainism? So the way we would like, and the way we would like people to go and explain is, it's a religion and a way of life. we have
Got
three
it.
core principles,
Got
right?
it.
Non-violence is one of them, and that
Yes,
is the
let's speak
reason
to
why
that.
I'm a vegetarian.
Got it.
My second core principle is non-absolutism, which means I'll take the time to respect your views and I'll share my views. And the
Yes.
my third core principle is non-possessiveness. That means
Right.
I balance my needs and desires. And if I can do this, I will be able to manage my anger, ego, greed, deceit. And if I do
Right.
that, not only I'm happy, but people around me and this world is a happier place. And
Okay.
to us, that is the way I would explain it. And I've done it hundreds of times. And people ask me, oh, by the way, what was that number second one, number third one? And it
Sure.
really makes it's easy to understand.
Got it. So very nice. So this is a great
What do you
summary.
think? Do you think, Manoj, do you think we're missing anything from this elevator pitch when the most simplest way to explain what is Jainism?
I think for our kids, this is good, down to earth, and explains and puts vegetarianism, meditation, yoga. But then there are deeper things behind some of these words. How do we take those deeper things and begin a conversation? So this is where I want to begin about Jainism and the Jain path. So while Jain way of life, it talks about the practices, I want to talk about what is the Jain path. Now, this is an elaborate diagram that we will begin to see. So Yogan Bhai, we're going to talk about this. And the first conversation in Jain path is, what is our goal? What is it that we want in Jainism? And the answer is very clear. We want happiness, we want equanimity, we want moksha. Now, how
But
do we
Manoj,
define?
Manoj,
Yeah.
at times I feel that
Mhm.
Jains shy away from saying the word happiness.
Very much so. What happens is when we hear many of the Muni Maharaj and others, which is really good in the pravachans, yes, we talk about achieving moksha. But to achieve moksha, we must have day-to-day happiness. We must have a level of equanimity. And that is really and critically important. The question is, does Jainism teach us how to do that or not? And the answer is absolutely yes. And we need to find that. But we have to be very clear. On the Jain path, the goal is happiness, equanimity, and moksha. How do we get there? This is the way construct to be thinking about that idea. So if you're wondering what are some new things that you're going to be hearing today, this is the first major new concept that we want to introduce you to. The following. One is that underlying everything is Jain philosophy. It's philosophy. Whatever and however we do things, you may know it or don't know it, but it's the philosophical knowledge that is driving everything. And we'll talk about that philosophical knowledge. You may not know it, but the way we behave, you behave, it comes from the philosophy. That leads to principles, and they then lead to practices. Most people get confused, Yogan Bhai, that we are all about the rituals or all about the festivals. They are supporting actors in all of our path to moksha and happiness. They support us, but the core drive comes from the Jain philosophy, Jain principles, and Jain practices. Any thoughts or comments on this concept of philosophy, principles, and practices?
I can't emphasize enough. Jainism is not a religion of stories. As we know, there are some of the other traditions where it's mostly stories that
Yes.
really is amazing. We have such a strong foundation of, in modern terms, of biology, chemistry, physics, all coming together to form our core philosophy. And
Sure.
Manoj, I think you should we should talk about that briefly.
Absolutely. But first we have to again define what we mean again. Philosophy is the fundamental nature of reality. And this is important to understand. For Jains, the fundamental nature of reality is there is Jeev Ajeev, soul and non-soul, very much different from other religions. Not saying good or bad, but philosophical differences are there. There are principles, the ahimsa nekant, which are derived from that philosophy, and then the practices that we talk about, the vegetarianism and others that are there. That's the application of those principles, and we do those through our thoughts, our speech, and our action. So that's what I mean by the philosophy, the principles, and the practices. And here they are, the traditional understanding philosophy. जब अपन जैन philosophy के बारे में बातें करते हैं, वो क्या है? द्रव है, जीव है, अजीव है, धर्म, अधर्म, आकाश काल. There are the tattvas, right? All of them, you put them together. You have the principles, which are the anuvrats, ahimsa, satya, achorya, aparigra, brahmacharya. These are the traditional ways of looking at it, and then the practices are there as well. So this is the traditional way of looking at it. Now, here is our construct again, and this is how we can bring our path to Jain, to moksha again. We put the philosophy here, we put the principles here, and what's propelling us again with the rituals and festivals also is Samyak Darshan, Samyak Gyan, Samyak Charita. Now, I'll give a brief story here. In medicine, as a doctor, when we talk about bringing a change, so if I want to change say a patient's smoking habits, they're a long-time smoker, how do I bring about that change? It is actually a three-part process. First, you have to increase their knowledge, awareness that smoking is bad. Second, you have to change their attitude. You have to make them understand and change attitude that, hey, I need to quit smoking. And the third is changing their behavior, correct? They have to change. So Yogan Bhai, do you see that knowledge, attitude, behavior is the process of change? Do you see that?
It is not, yes, absolutely. And our
what is
forefathers
that
who had
in
come
Jain?
up with this
Yes, and what
is
did
exactly
Jain? Yes. Samyak Darshan, Samyak Gyan,
Samyak Gyan and Samyak
Samyak Charit.
Yeah, Manoj, I
brought
really like the way we've described philosophy, principles, and practices, because somehow in our minds they all get mixed together. And I think by delineating this, it'll help us, all of us, as we're going to go much deeper into this and subsequent sessions. It will help us delineate these and have a conversation about these.
Absolutely. So now let us let's dissect each one a bit more and begin using the modern terms that our kids and grandchildren will understand. If we're talking about Jain philosophy, what we're basically talking about is the theory of life, right? Theory of soul, Jeev Ajeev, theory of karma, theory of moksha. That's the philosophy that we're talking about core, correct? Then there are the principles. Yes, we have the 5 anuvrats, but in the book, Tattvat Sutra, and which is the source of our conversation that we have, and we will be sharing so many things. Everything is coming from this book. What Natmal Tatia ji, who is the author and translator of this, the author was Uma Swati, and what he said was that the 3 core principles of Jainism are ahimsa, anekantvad, and aparigra. So when we talk about principles for our children, let us begin talking about those as Jain principles. And then our Jain practices, which we will go into more details: vegetarianism, forgiveness, open-mindedness. There are, in fact, 24 Jain practices that we have been able to derive. Any thoughts, comments, or questions from the group or others who are with us?
Manoj, people might say, I know these, I know the Jain practices, I do them. How is this different?
Yeah.
You know, what is it going to be so different about what you guys are going to be talking about?
So in fact, that's exactly what's important to know. How is this different? But first, we need to talk about how this relates to the traditional way of conversation that we know from the scriptures to the modern way of conversation that we may have, and to connect the two. So when we're talking about the dravas, we are talking about the theory of life, biology, chemistry, physics, space, and time. So that we can see that. When we're talking about the tattvas, we're talking about the theory of soul, all the karmas, theory of karma, and then theory of moksha. So Jain philosophy in our generation begin to use these modern terms. Now let's look at the principles, same thing, non-violence, anekantvad and aparigraha, and the common word, love, respect, share. And then there are many practices that we can derive on that. So again, we will go into depth on each one of these practices and then see how they can be balanced in our life. But
hey, Manoj, please go back to the last slide. I just want to make sure to let people know that we're not changing any philosophy here. We're not changing any principles here. We are remapping it in modern terminology, in the way we have spent thousands of hours in high school and college and beyond, and that's how we learn about science and other health and other philosophy issues here. So we're bringing the terminology to modern way of life, and we will see that there are some things that are emphasized more in modern day versus how they were in the past. So I just want to reassure people that we're not in the business of changing the core of Jainism. In fact, we are in the business of further strengthening our core so we can face the pressure and the challenges that we are facing or we will face as we move forward in this North American world.
Great. So I'll ask.
And in fact, in the Indian world too.
Yeah, in India. So I'll ask people in their thoughts as well on this. I know there's Mayur Mehta is on, and we have discussed some of this. And Hiran and Payal Pokarna, your thoughts on the need, or there is no need for this conversation and the modern way of life words for our children and grandchildren. What do you guys think? You can unmute.
Manoj Bhai, this is Mayur.
Yes, please.
We absolutely need to modernize it because the kids or the current generation needs to see things from a practical perspective. And also, with all the other religions in place, it's a good way to sort of explain and also be yourself, but also be unique and special as well.
Got it. Yeah. No, and we felt that
else?
need. Yeah. Wait, Payal, maybe your thoughts on this?
More than a thought, I have a question. I have a teenager at home, and the biggest challenge that we have currently is practicing non-possessiveness with her.
Yeah.
So with the kind of culture and with the kind of things going on, it is very difficult to make her understand, okay, this is what it is, and you should be satisfied with what you have. Any thoughts, any comment?
So yes, absolutely. And we have a tool that will help self-evaluation. So we will be sharing some of those tools. It is not an easy journey in helping children grow up to understand the Jain path and the Jain way of life. And you will be able to share and learn from some others who will share through the process. So I can almost guarantee that you will have a better idea of what you can do by the end of the 4 weeks. So I think you'll enjoy that tremendous. Great.
Thank you.
So yeah.
Hey,
so
Manoj,
yeah, please.
No, I just wanted to see how the definition of the me, my, us, I. And you know, in the old days, we only talked about the soul, right? We said, hey, I am the soul and I'm nothing else. But can you shed some light on perhaps other ways to define us?
Sure. Okay, so if you were to ask something new that you've learned today, or at least new that you saw, one is the whole idea of breaking our religion down, actually categorizing it into philosophy, principles, and practices. Today is the day of our 4 sessions for us to build a construct, a foundation to better understand, and we will build on this foundation, I promise you, week by week. But it's also important to understand the chief philosophical question, who am I? If you open up any philosophy book, the first question is, who am I? Yes, what is my purpose? What is my goal? We talked about it, moksha, yes, but who am I? And so the construct that works with us, that has worked in many conversations, is that I is a mix of many things. It is the me, the my, the us, and the our. What do we mean by that? What is the me? It is the body, the soul, and the mind. That is where at the core is there. It is my possessions. That is also part of who I am. We have to recognize that. We understand that the core Atma is there, but these are other in our day-to-day life. The my possessions are there. The us is the family, relations, and community. And then the our is our country, our planet, our universe. All of them are part of that construct of who that I is. Yogen Bhai, do you see how we need to see ourselves, the individual, in part of the larger picture?
This is absolutely, finally, it has made sense to me, because I always hesitated in the past on saying, hey, I'm not the body, I'm the soul. Sure, at one level that's true, but I am so much more, and that is how my mind is. It's so much more. And the one that really resonates for me is the us, the relationships. As you know, in all of the research in happiness that has been done, there's one key ingredient that stands out, one key ingredient, and it is our relationships. You could have all the money and all the other things. People who have strong relationships are the happiest people on this planet.
So let's talk a little bit about that. So let's go back on what is happiness or equanimity. What is it on the Jain path? This is the goal that we're trying to achieve. In our conversations, we will be looking at this in light of this model of Jain philosophy, principles, practices. How does Jainism allow and teach us how we can achieve this? And we will be doing it through various content, but again, the content of philosophy, theory of life, where we're going to talk about that, theory of soul, theory of karma. You will see many block diagrams of how karma works from the scriptures to the modern day, theory of moksha as well. And then we will talk about the triple A's, ahimsa, anikantvad, aparigraha. And we will talk about the 24 practices. These are 8 practices which are derived, each one from the scriptures, on what is ahimsa. In modern day terms, our children can explain to their friends that we believe in compassion, we believe in intoxicant-free, we believe in service. They can explain where it comes from as well. So let's just take an example. In the past, one of the practices is service, helping others. Where does this come from? If you read the Tattva Sutra, this is my favorite verse from the Tattva Sutra, Yogen Bhai. 5.21.
Parasparoho pargroho jivanam. Absolutely beautiful.
Souls render service to one another. In fact, my first article in the New York Times, I quoted this. I wanted to share this with the world. And this defines that idea of service right from the very scriptures. Imagine Uma Swati writing these words nearly 2,000 years ago. Just think of that and what relevance it has. That is how these practices we're going to be discussing over the course: respect, open-mindedness, and meditation, as well as puja, balancing needs, as Payal brought up. How do we convey this to our children? How to talk about contentment, how to talk about penance and the art of dying as well in this conversation. So
Manoj, it's sometimes it may appear that, oh my God, I already know all this. Why are we sort of repeating and so on? But even if you take this number 23 in this Aparigar, art of dying, that itself could take many hours of discussion. Right? How ready we are, what are the various ways we should be thinking about this. And it's something that if we take the time to go through it, it'll become a deeper part of us and will help us achieve a greater sense of purpose and happiness.
So this conversation is not about, our weekly conversation is not about us lecturing. It is really a conversation. And it is about doing things. So this is what we will be doing week 1, week 2, week 3, and week 4. What are we going to be doing? Week 1, we are going to reflect on what is my life. So you will be receiving this worksheet, and I want to acknowledge 2 people who are instrumental in helping us make all this happen. And Edwin Rodriguez. Edwin has been working with me for over 15 years. Edwin, if you're there, if you want to say hello to the group, he is in India, and it is 2:30 in the morning, or 3 o'clock in the morning. Edwin?
Yeah, hello everyone.
Our apologies.
Yes.
Good night all.
Yes. And the second is Abhinav Bantia. Abhinav is also in India, and he is very excited to be sharing all of this work with us. And Abhinav, if you want to say hello to the group as well.
Hello, everyone. So nice to join you all with all the energetic group and Manoj sir and Yogin sir. Thank you so much.
Great. And as you may know, that we are doing the similar exercise for India time as well. So parallel 2 sessions going on. Okay, so week 1, we are going to be asking, you will be getting this sheet, and it is the Jain Path Journey sheet. And what we will be doing is asking your simple name, age, simple profile, and I put some, in. So Manoj Jain, age 58, married with 3 children, work as a doctor. But then 3 things that you are seeking, right? 3 things that you're seeking in your life, personal and professional life. So for me, seeking to share treasures of Jainism with others, working to eliminate TB from India, seeking to bring joy and happiness in my life and others around me. For you, please take the time and write what those things are. Takes 10 minutes. That is week 1. Then it gets very interesting. Then what we do is our reflections. On week 2, actually, because week 1 and week 2 will be collapsed together, we will ask you to do this together. We'll ask you to take time and reflect. What are your practices? One is not Jain by just going to the temple or having the last name Jain, but his or her beliefs in the Jain practices and hardwired in daily lives. We can take many of the Jain philosophy and put them into 24 core practices. And we can ask them. So Yogin Bhai, maybe we can do this and then people can, as an example. So let's talk about my practice.
But I just wanted to share with people that this is like putting a mirror in front of you. We look in the mirror at least a couple of times a day, and we see our external self. But have we ever had a chance to look internal, and especially during these times of pollution where it is about self-reflection? I feel that the adults learn, and then seen a lot of research on how adults learn. They don't learn by lecturing. You could go to lecture all day long and so on, and it really doesn't sink in as much as experiential.
Correct.
And so through this workshop, through these, you will get a chance to experience it, and you will see where your journey is. And that will provide the strongest insight.
Sounds good. So let's take
let's
do it as an example. So there are two. There is the mini, which takes about 5 minutes. And then there is the full one, which takes about 20 minutes. So we give you the option to which one you take. So my practice of vegetarian vegan diet. I am not vegetarian. I'm not aware of the process of meat production. Or where are you in this scale? I'm a strict vegetarian or vegan, and openly share and encourage my practice with others. In a scale of, so you do a drop down, I assume that you're a 5. Yes. So you're at a 5 on that. Okay. And then on the practice of forgiveness. And Edwin, are you able to see my screen and hear me?
Yes,
yeah.
I can.
Okay. And then on my practice of forgiveness, I quickly get angry and cruel towards people, or I can control my anger, or I forgive all people and ask for forgiveness. Where do you stand on that, you think? Yogan Bhai?
Different at different times, but I am, at 4, I like to think.
Okay, so let's keep going, and I'm going to move
Yeah.
this quickly. This is the question on my balancing of needs and wants. Correct? File asked about this. I purchase clothes, gadgets, and furnishes recklessly. I have endless wants, or I buy what I need, or I have no wants. Where are you in that, you think, in the scale of in this 5 part? Say maybe I buy only what I need for daily life and have no excessive wants.
No, I'm at 3.
You want to put it at 3. So you will have a chance to do this on your own, and you will all get the master sheet. Okay.
Yes, and by the way, even though Manoj, you're asking others here, this is only one person taking it. Otherwise, it'll be a very mixed.
Mixed. Okay, so my open-mindedness, I'm going to move quickly. I force my views onto others. I solicit and act on multiple views, or I proactively listen. Let's say that you're at a level 4 on that. My meditation, I have no knowledge of meditation, or I practice mindfulness, say once or twice, and say I practice meditation at least 2 or 3 times a week. Maybe let's put there someone is at a level 3 on that. And then environment, I recycle, I waste water, or I never recycle rather, or I actively recycle and I'm concerned about the environment and environmental issues. Let's put a 4 on that. Now what happens is you get a cumulative score, the mini self-reflection for yourself. 76, is that a good or a bad, is for you to decide. But it is for you to then compare over time. What this allows you to do is to say that where are you in relation to Jain practices in a very quantitative way. I will say this in all honesty, I did the mini and I came to a 79, and I did the full and I also came to a 79. So that is a way to first of the steps for self-reflection. Yogan Bhai, any questions on this? Or from the group, any questions?
No, so I want to let you know that after you take this, you would find it's not about the score, but of course, everybody loves to see a number, but it is a thought process that goes in that gets you to see the many levels of each of the practice. And it is about knowing that you made great progress. In fact, you guys, a lot of us are actually really good at this, and we need to celebrate that. It is time for celebration of all the great, things that we have.
And all of these things are linked to the Jain practice of number 1, number 12, and the different Jain practices, which are you will have more detail on as well. And then the third week, we will talk about the core, seeking my happiness. And we ask our questions, are you happy? And then on a scale of 1 to 5, suppose you're at a 4, you put that in, and then the color changes on that. Suppose you're at a 5, you can see how where your practice is. Then you will look at how to better define happiness, and in the present happiness, lasting happiness, eternal happiness, and prioritize. And then do a root cause analysis of where happiness comes from. Your health, affection, security, significance, more depth and details on that, and then also be able to get a happiness score. And then lastly, on the fourth week, we look at these 24 practices and divide them into the 3 categories they are, and then we prioritize. So for example, vegetarianism is a priority for me. And yes, I have, for all part and purposes, a vegetarian. I can check that. And in your worksheet, you're able to check that and then be able to do that.
Manoj,
So
I think this priority is very, very important, because we can't do everything. And our mind is as smart as we think we are unable to prioritize everything and then really accomplish. So this allows us to focus on a few things for a certain duration of time and see if we've made progress there. And so that priority exercise is very insightful.
So all of this is derived from a Jain Path booklet, and it has a philosophical constructs. There are details. It's at jainpath.org. We will be going through this in more details over the next 4 weeks. And as you can see, there is depth in the conversation as well. And this is where our kids can then relate to these words over time. So with that, I want to talk and see if and ask questions from our group, what thoughts they have on this, our journey together to better understand our religion for the modern times and how we can help explain it for the generations to come. Yogen bhai, your thoughts, and then thoughts from the group, and other ideas that you wish that as a group we can take up in these conversations. We especially wanted to have the conversations over a long period of time. और ये इसलिए क्योंकि ये ideas एक lecture में एक time में नहीं होते हैं. It doesn't come in one thinking. Over the week, when you're working, in back of your mind, you're going to ask yourself, while you're seeing a patient, if you're a doctor, or while you're at work sitting on the computer screen, क्या जैन धर्म इसके बारे में क्या बोलता है? ये कौन सा principle है जो बोल रहा है कि if someone is getting angry at you, how you respond, which principle do I have to use in my Jain religion? So that is why we have broken it up into 4 weeks and make it conversational. So thoughts, comments, questions from the group. Maybe Mayur, maybe we have a small enough group. So Mayur, your thoughts on this? How
I
would you
think
like
this
to?
is great. Manoj bhai and Yogendra bhai, it seems like it gives you a baseline to start off with. And then as you're going through the journey, if you're sharing this with your family or your friends, you almost have like a team to sort of coach you on to, and improve along the way too, because ultimately that's the thing about life. You want to improve yourself, but then uplift others along the way too, and be aware. So this is a great way of doing it. Thank you.
And the other part is that there's a working exercise, right? It's not just talk. It is an active exercise of self-reflection and self-motivation that will be there. So
very nice.
I just want to know how to wean off or reduce electronic addiction.
yes.
I'll have to work on that.
So
Yeah,
do many of
we
us.
have the Alcoholic Anonymous and Gamblers Anonymous, and we'll need to come up with some electronic anonymous groups. Good idea.
So, great. I know we have Neha Ben there, and others, Preeti Ben, Payal, and others. Your thoughts on our journey together? Yes, please. Go ahead, Preeti Ben. Yeah.
Hi, Jai Janendra.
Jai Janendra.
This is a great initiative, I believe, and this will help. I think we should advertise more and have more youngsters join our group, so that they will be the one who will be, very much get so much out of this discussion. Of course, we will too. This is a great, like you worked very hard on this to reflect on ourselves. That is the very good thing to do for us.
So actually, Preeti Ben, I'll say this, but this group is a pilot to launch it to them in full. We've never done this before. I have already discussed this with YJA, and we didn't want to bring it to them until we were discussing it with a core group of people to get ideas and thoughts and how our presentations would go. So you're absolutely right. This is just the first of the many journeys that we have. So that is great. I think so I think Pavin Ajmera, please go ahead and you can unmute and ask your question. That the Jain Path booklet, it's right on the website. It's still being edited, and we'll have more on that. So other comments or questions from the group, what they think? I think Rach, yes, please. Yes.
In your second slide, philosophy, practice, philosophy, principles, and
practices.
So do you mean that we start with the philosophy and then go to the principles and then practice?
So no, we don't have to, right? Many people begin, अपन जैसे इंडिया में शुरू करते हैं बच्चों को, अपन उनको सीधे rituals से शुरू कर देते हैं, right? अपन मंदिर जाना शुरू करते हैं and all of that. We begin with the rituals. We never learn philosophy and stuff. But even for our kids, we can, at different ages, we can be talking about the practices. But at the underlying practices, as they get older, especially when they become teenagers, high school students, if they know the core philosophy and the principles, it is incredibly beneficial. Because our kids are incredibly intelligent, inquisitive, and then they ask these questions. So there. So I know, so great. Maybe Hiren, your thoughts on this, Rachna, in California, your thoughts on this, if you get a chance to speak.
Well,
Hiren here.
Yeah.
I mean, I would echo with what others were saying, that for obviously this is very important for people like us who, are not very involved in religion, and in places where we don't have religious institutions. Like we are in a place where we don't have temples and stuff like that, so we don't have a good gathering. So I think it is good to reach out to those kind of populations. So I don't know if you have a way to go through these Jain associations where there's a lack of that kind of group of people. I think that outreach would be important among the adults, and you're already doing it for the kids. I thought very important for kids. We were making sure that our kids are listening to this just now, whatever they can. They were not very happy when we talked about possessiveness that happens in the kids, but I think kids need that outreach too.
Absolutely. And again, this is a pilot start from the Jain Long Range Planning Committee. We knew we had to venture into beginning the conversation presentations. So your feedback is going to be incredibly important. Other folks and their comments from the group, I think there's
you're welcome to, if you don't feel like talking, you're welcome to put your notes in chat or email to us. You have our email. Actually, Edwin will put the email out there on the chat as well. So anytime, please, we would love to hear from you. We see you folks as our, not our, but overall ambassadors of Jainism, Jain path, Jain way of life, and see if we can have a parallel discussion on this as we bring it closer to our modern day in a very collaborative manner. And we don't want to say that the old constructs weren't as powerful. I mean, they are working great. They work great for a lot of people, but we want to make sure that they work for a newer generation that's here and it's up and coming.
Okay, so let us finish. It's an hour completed. Yogan Bhai, if you would take us into a Namokar mantra, and we will finish for today. And again, we will join and you will get the information for doing the exercises for the first week, the second week, and then we'll subsequently do the third and the fourth week exercises as well. So
yes,
let's
that would be great.
Namokar mantra. Yeah.
Please take a moment, sit straight, take a nice deep breath, inhale, hold, and exhale. And let's say one Namokar mantra together. Om Namo Arihantanam. Om Namo Siddhanam. Om Namo Vairyanam. Om Namo Vajayanam. Om Namo Lore Savsavanam. Eso Panch Namokar. Sabha Pava Pranashno. Mangala Savesam. Paramamoy Mangala.
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti Shanti. Perfect.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. And we will see you next week. Please take time to do the self-reflection exercises, and then we'll ask folks to also share if they would like to, and then to build and edit and improve on it. So take care. Bye-bye. Jai Jine.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jai Jinendra.